Right? So again, we'll be going into a lesson uh, on Purim, right? On the book of Purim, and read about our history, understanding a little, as we learn and return to our history and who we are, right? So we're going to the book of Esther, the book of Esther, and what we've done is just, just for the sake of time. When you may want to take the opportunity, as I put out over the past couple months or whatever, what have you, uh, to read the entire book of Esther. Okay, because it's a very good, informative, and even entertaining story. I would suggest reading. And we're gonna read through the book of Esther, but a bit abbreviated, and touch on, the things that, of the most importance. We've kind of went through it to just kind of shave it down a little bit, just to give us more room to, partake in festivities and in keeping and celebrating this day, this holy day. So we're going to go to the book of Esther, right? And we'll start at the second chapter, and where we are, just to kind of to give a little bit of context of where we're picking up and some of the things we've kind of bypassed in the first chapter and in verses. We're looking at a situation where there's a king in rulership, and he's the king over, I believe, like 127 provinces. It's a large landmass in space. From the scripture describes it as being from Ethiopia to India. So we're talking about the vast majority of what a lot of us would call probably almost the entire Middle East, quote unquote, all the way from Africa into India, bordering all of these different land masses to the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, and all these beautiful lakes and all these things that are going on there. I'm just kind of painting the picture. He's a powerful man. And of course it even includes and encompasses the majority of what we know to be the promised land of Israel. This is what he's ruling over, right? So this king decides to essentially have a celebration of sorts, or a party, and he calls for his wife. He wants to show everyone the beauty of the queen, and she, to an extent, she doesn't listen or pay him any mind, and somewhat publicly humiliates him, and he decides he needs to find a new queen. Because this was on public display where he's throwing this huge party. They're drinking from gold, all of the things, all the bells and whistles. This is all going on. And his wife, after he sends out for her to come and these different things, she just totally says, no, I'm not doing that, or what have you. So it was a public humiliation. The king decides that, the queen was Vashti, was her name, and he decides that he needs to find a new queen, right? So he sends out a decree for to make it be known that the king is looking for a new queen, right? So let's pick up in Esther chapter 2, verse 5. We'll start. Esther chapter 2, verse 5.
Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite.
You see the detail, like his names and generations. This is history. This isn't just a fairy tale of a story. All the way back, detailing his heritage and saying which tribe he is, his nationality, being a Benjamite from the tribe of Benjamin. Obviously, we know those are one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So Mordecai is an Israelite, right? Go ahead.
Verse 6. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the son of Babylon, had carried away.
Hold this. We're just going to grab a quick precept just to kind of reference what we're speaking of here in this being carried away. 2 Kings. Go to the book of 2 Kings, chapter 24. Right? Knowing that this isn't the first or only time that we've been taken captive or carried away captive. We're reading of this now, here in the Old Testament, of them being carried away captive, strangers in another land. Second King, I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
2 Kings chapter 24, verse 1.
So this is the setting and time of this is around 605 BC. All right, that what we're going to read here in 2 Kings. And then the time of Esther is going to be between 480, 473 in that time frame of the time of Esther. So we're talking about 120 years later. But so we're going back because it's the Esther. When we're reading in Esther, it's referring to the dispersion among and being led captive, right? Again, this is true history, and we're going back to 2 Kings. Go ahead.
2 Kings 24, verse 1. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him.
Okay.
And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Most High, which he spake by his servants, the prophets.
So as we're being, coming against by another nation, he said that the king of Judah was a servant, right, to Nebuchadnezzar, and then he turned on him. But again, many times we always want to look at somebody else. Understand verse 2, and the Most High sent against him, against Judah. All right, because that's and it's always relevant. Obedience. I was going to say that's a theme of today, obedience. But it's always a relevant theme. It's always present, and no matter what angle we approach. But it's an important thing that I think I always like to gravitate to, just because I see it's essential, right? Because it doesn't come down to what somebody else always does to us. It's us dealing with obedience to our Father. That's our protection. So you see, we find ourselves in situations and in and out of captivity because of what thus saith the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Surely at the commandment of the Most High came this upon Judah.
You see that? Go ahead.
To remove them out of his sight, for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did.
What did he do? Dealt in disobedience. Because of all that he did, the Most High is like, he sent other nations to deal with him and punish him. All right, so that's where we at in Esther. This is us dispersed. This is us dispersed amongst other nations. And another nation's kingdom. Sound familiar? Another nation's kingdom, a great, massive kingdom where we're living subserved, on a sub level. Okay? Let's get back into Esther and pick up where we were, verse 7.
Esther 2, verse 7. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father. Can I start at 6?
I didn't finish
verse 6.
All right, yes.
Verse 6. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, from Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
Right. You see, that's the same king of Judah we just read about in Kings, Second Kings. That the king turned on. So this is the same captivity. So they're here in captivity to a level or under another nation's kingdom based on what we read in Second Kings. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And he brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter.
Okay, so here is Esther's uncle. Her mother and father passed, and so he took up and raised her as his own. Right? All right, so let's move on down to verse 16. Right? Y'all following me, right? All right.
Verse 16. So Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus, into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight, more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head, and made her queen instead of Vashti.
Okay, so we know the story. He's looking for a new queen. And we skipped through some things, but Esther was a great woman. She was raised well by Mordecai, humble, and the king noticed these attributes about her. How she was, she didn't prance about as if, with that proud spirit or presence. He would give her the first opportunity to do this or to do that. And she would do it humbly. She would be given servants and handmaids, and she would deal with them, lovingly and kindly. Not saying, ooh, the king chose me. Go over here, fix that for me. She was dealing with it, and he saw this. And this is some of the reasons that he loved her above everybody, because of how her continence like that. So we're reading here, he loved her above everyone to the point that he made her his queen. Okay, understand, he doesn't know her nationality. He doesn't know she's a Hebrew. Okay, which again is another, everyone that's brown isn't, necessarily, a Pacific nation or something, right? Like we always raised up thinking. So, where are we at? Verse 17?
Yes. That was the end of that. You want me to continue to 18?
Okay. Yes. Did you read? Okay. Yeah,
I read 17.
Okay.
Verse 18. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king.
Okay. Let's jump down to the 3rd chapter. We'll start at the 1st verse. I'm going to try to move through this, but it's a good story. 3 and 1.
Chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
Okay, so here's a guy who gets promoted amongst the ranks by the king, Haman, to be basically second in command to the king. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
Okay, so we've got this guy who the king has set in place, right, to basically be second in command. And, he's moving around, and as you read the details of the story, he's very proud. He moves and wants everyone to jump to the whistle and every beat and tone of anything he says and does. So here now, he's got a situation where someone doesn't want to bow to him. So he doesn't want to bow. That's Mordecai, right? And we know Mordecai is the uncle to Esther and of the tribe of Israel, Benjamin to be exact. Let's go to the Apocrypha. Real quick, hold Esther, of course, we coming right back. We're going to the rest of Esther in the Apocrypha. More proof, of course. Unlimited proof that the Apocrypha is a continuance and is in total conjunction with the Bible. But again, we find in the book of the Apocrypha a book called The Rest of Esther, which came from the Bible. So here's a continuance of this story and this history. We're going to go to 13 and 12. And we're going here just real quick to get this small excerpt to show why Mordecai didn't bow. Why didn't he bow to this man? Go ahead.
Everything verse 2. Yeah. Okay. All right. The rest of Esther, chapter 13, verse 12. Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest the Most High that it was neither in contempt nor pride nor any desire of glory that I did not bow down to proud Haman.
Right. So you're seeing it wasn't pride or being seen or trying to stand out. Go ahead.
Verse 13. For I could have been content with good will for the salvation of Israel to kiss the soles of his feet.
He's saying, so it wasn't a proud spirit. We know through the example of how he raised Esther, he wasn't a proud man. He's like, I kiss his soles of his feet for the sake of my people and the God of our people. So it wasn't pride. Go ahead.
Verse 14. But I did this that I might not prefer the glory of man above the glory of the Most High.
He did it in obedience to the Most High, in a pure, righteous spirit concerning the Father. That's why he didn't bow to this man. In obedience to his Father. Right? Understanding the ways of our people and the direction and the commandments that the Most High gave us as a people. He was holding firm and standing true to it through adversity, knowing he could be persecuted, not to stand out and be cool or be recognized or say, hey, I'm too tough, I'm too proud, I don't do that. Nah, it was obedience to his Father and humility. Which verse?
Verse 14 still.
Okay.
Neither will I worship any but thee, O God, neither will I do it in pride.
Right. You see that? And humility. That's the reason he didn't bow to this man. Okay? So let's go back where we were. Verse 3. We're in Esther 3. Yep.
Esther 3, verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 3. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew.
Right. So now they coming against him and dealing with him daily, asking him, and antagonizing and questioning and wanting to see him, provoke fear in him or whatnot, to have him go against what he believes and bow. Right? And especially, they looking like, what do you think you're so great and such type of person just because you're a Jew? It don't matter. You need to bow too. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai.
Okay, so first he's upset with this guy. He's like, what's up with this dude? Let's deal with him. Then he gets more information concerning the situation and Mordecai. And they're like, he's a Jew. Those Jews, they got this whole other separate idea and feel like they're supposed to do something different according to, their commandments and their God. So this brought wrath, more wrath upon Haman, to where now he wants to destroy an entire nation, everyone within the kingdom anyway, that's Jew of Jew descent, of the tribes of Israel. He wants to set out a decree to take out this whole nation because within the kingdom, because this man is standing firm concerning the commandments as the Israelites as a people. Right? Which verse?
That was 6.
Right.
Verse 7. In the first month, that is the month.
And you know, we're gonna see there's some more to Hammond feeling this way. The reason why he's like, you know what? This is an opportunity. Let me go after this people, not just this guy. I have feelings towards this nation as a people entirely. Let's go after them all. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar.
All right, you want to read that real quick? Okay. So he's going to read pur and lot to understand what this is, and to bring understanding to the name Purim and all that.
Pur. This is where the holy day Purim gets its name, pur, or lots. Haman decided that he would cast lots, a concept comparable to rolling dice or flipping a coin, to determine the most expeditious time of Israel's mass murder. Zondervan Bible Dictionary, pur.
Okay.
The use of the lot to...
And this is lot now. He's going to give the definition in the Zondervan. So we read pur. It's like the leaving it to chance, or, like it said, similar to flipping a coin or rolling dice, but there was more involved. It wasn't just chance. It's like, supposed to be some level of spiritual intervention and what they dealt with on their spiritual side to kind of lead them in what and when to do. You understand, right?
Even like the Asians use tea leaves or shake bones and throw them down.
Yeah, y'all see that stuff. You'll see how they do it when they go to a mystical person in a movie and they boom and smoke some smoke around and throw some ashes around and do something crazy. This is what they doing, trying to deal with, to get direction on exactly when and the timing and the day, the time that we're supposed to do this. That's what this casting lot and casting pur. That's what they're doing.
Zondervan, definition of lot. The use of the lot to determine doubtful matters is very old, and the practice of casting lots was common among the nations of antiquity. Haman's effort to determine a lucky day to exterminate the Jews.
Okay, so that's what he's saying when we read verse 7 and it say that they cast pur. The lot. That is the lot. That's what they went and did. Let's figure out when and how we're going to come against them. Go ahead.
Back in Esther, chapter 3, verse 8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
Here's Haman going to the king, ready to try to grab him to go against these people, saying, look, they against everything, they this and that. And you see Haman has an idea and a little understanding concerning these people. You're going to see there's a history. We're going to get it too. You're going to see there's a history here. This isn't the first time Haman and his people have dealt with Israel in this manner. So he understands this because of his history throughout generations. There's a reason that anger was riled up in him. Like, yo, it's these same people again. These Jews. Go ahead.
Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the lands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
The Jews' enemy, right? The son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy, right? So let's see here. Get where we at? We're in 3 and 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that word Agagite. Right? And you'll see, you got it?
Mine is going to take a second if you want to use yours.
Okay. So Agagite. In the Hebrew, in the concordance, H91, descendant of Agag, right? Agagite. So the question is now, who is Agag? And Agag was the title given to Amalekite kings. Okay? The Amalekites. Amalekites would be, of course, descendants of Amalek. Right? Okay? So that's who we're dealing with. We're just kind of running down a little bit of genealogy, and I'm not going to harp on this too long, but I want to get a point here. And so let's go to Genesis 36 and see who is Amalek. Genesis chapter 36, and we're coming back to Esther. Genesis 36, and we'll read verse 12. Many times, it's hard. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations in regular day-to-day life, and we looking and we like, man, why is there such disdain? Like, how can this just be so inbred that somebody can feel this way and be so passionate about dealing with me unjustly? Where does the racism come from? Like, why is it just across the board and everybody's in on this whole coup, it feels like sometimes, right? Genesis 36 and 12.
Genesis 36, verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife.
Okay, so we see Amalek is from the seed of Esau. Right? Amalek is from the seed of Esau. And this is important to understand because of the promises made by Esau. Let's get Genesis 27. We are familiar, but let me just run through these real quick because I want to get something else as well. Genesis 27, 41. So these are Haman's forefathers we're looking at. Amalek, which is a descendant of Esau, Edom. Go ahead.
Genesis 27, verse 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him.
Okay, go ahead.
And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob.
Okay, so this goes back to, we're in Genesis, where we're reading of Esau looking to slay and having an issue with Jacob, right? I want to get a little bit more. There's a reason I went into this. Get 1 Samuel. Okay? So here's Haman. And we know even to this day, they have the history. They are, it's not a fair playing field because us as a people, for the most part, don't even know who we are, let alone any type of history of what has taken place throughout the past or how we've gotten to where we are. These are things that they know and understand and keep private. Those who deal on levels and control and direct the motions and tides of the earth. They know well. They know who they are. They know who we are. They know the history of things, what has taken place and what has worked and what has failed in the past. They know the gods that they deal with exactly. They know the gods that we deal with. Like when we go through the lessons and showing how it's so intentional that they keep us from our God, it's because these are the things they know. They know this stuff. Right? 1 Samuel, right? 15. Go ahead and start at 1.
1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, The Most High sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Most High.
Be obedient.
Thus says the Most High of hosts, to remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came out from Egypt.
So here's Amalek. They've been, I can go through more examples of this throughout the scriptures. But when we read here in 1 Samuel, Amalek, and it's talking about how they laid wait. When we were fleeing from the Egyptians, Amalek was sitting out in wait for us to look to destroy us there. They'd hang in the back and pick off the older or children or the weak. They were attacking then. So here it is. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. This is the Most High. I remember that which Amalek did to my people Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he come up out of Egypt. Verse 3.
Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not.
This is the Most High. He said, I remember them. I know who these people are. They need to be removed utterly. Utterly destroyed. Go ahead.
But slay both man and women, infant and suckling.
Okay, men, women, children.
Ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them.
So the Most High is saying, take out everything and anything they possess. Don't take nothing for spoil. This needs to be stamped out. That's what the Most High is putting out. Go ahead.
And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telam, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah. Mm-hmm. And Saul came to a city of Amalek and laid wait in the valley. And Saul said unto the Canaanites, Go, depart, get you down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Canaanites departed from among the Amalekites. Mm-hmm. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive.
Agag, how we were showing that's a word used for kings concerning the Amalekites, and you see it there. So he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. All right, kept him alive. Go ahead.
And utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Mm-hmm. But Saul and the people spared Agag.
He wasn't obedient. He wasn't obedient. Because we wouldn't be reading about them in Esther. This is that same seed. That's what I'm saying. He knows. He knows throughout the generations who these people are. He's like, these are those people. Right? He spared him. Go ahead.
And the best of the sheep, and of the ox, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them.
You see that? The Most High said, get rid of everything. Ox, lambs. Go ahead, read it.
And would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refused, that they destroyed utterly.
So they just made a decision what they thought was vile and refuge versus dealing with some obedience. Go right down to verse 24.
And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Most High and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice.
So you see that? They were looking at, hey man, we need one of these. Look at that sheep. Look at the whatever, you know what I'm saying? We don't have any more ram's horn. We could use this one. They started dialecting and using their own wisdom. Versus just dealing with what he said, with what the Most High commanded. And so here's Saul, and we read it in the first verse, where he said, Samuel also said unto Saul, the Most High sent me to anoint thee to be king over the people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Here he is listening to the people because he's fearful of what they're going to think or what they're going to do. If he's going to lose some popularity or whatever. So, he starts to reason and think and conversate and decide. Okay, we'll keep those. We'll keep that herd of them. We'll use that. Oh man, that's some good looking gold. Yeah, we can use this here. What are we missing this at the back at the crib? Why we can't take that? What do you crave? Why you leaving all this? For the fear of the people, he was disobedient. And sometimes we may not understand things all the time. We have to learn to deal accordingly to the scriptures and what the Most High says, whether we understand it or not. So here it is, for whatever reason, he found compassion for this king and saved him alive, allowing that seed to continue after the Most High said, stomp it out. And let me just go ahead and put it out there. It's a whole nother lesson within itself. This is the seed of who are called the Jewish people today. That's Amalek. There's a reason the Most High said, yo, take them out and everything they touch and in dealing with. Kill it all. He let that seed move. So not only are we looking at them and reading about them in Esther, trying to come up. Because that's powerful that this guy's just like, yo, let's just kill the whole nation. You think it was just cuz? He's like, yo, these Jews again? We about to kill them all. I'm second in charge. I'm almost pretty much the king. We're about to kill them. Everybody. Look at our state. Look at where we at. Look at us now. Obedience. All right, let's go back to where we were. In Esther.
Esther chapter 3, verse 10.
We can always use our own wisdom and come up with things. The Most High's wisdom supersedes every time. We can figure it out and make it all make sense. But we got to learn to deal with some obedience. And we're about to see a great example of that in Esther and Mordecai. And look and we're going to see the difference. See what happens, obedience versus disobedience. That's what it boils down to. Go ahead.
Esther 3 and 10. And the king took his... Is that where we left off?
Yeah, you can go there.
Okay. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
And see that ring, that's power, because you're gonna see that's what they used to use to seal things. That's because he's gonna use that ring to seal the commandment to send out and say, hey, this is the day, this is what we're gonna do. Everyone in the kingdom, he sends it out on donkeys and camels to every place. He's got that seal. So he goes to the king and he says, here, go ahead, move on it. Let's jump to verse 12.
Verse 12. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. And there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writings thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring.
In the name of the king and sealed with his ring. So they sent it out. It's different languages, different everything. He went through the whole production to make sure everywhere, everybody know we about to send out a decree on this day. This is the day where we about to go out and just straight lynch. Man, don't that sound familiar though? Don't it sound familiar? It isn't quite as blatant today, but just a generation ago. They could just go out and have what they call a good time, just straight killing. So this is what's happening. Make sure it's in every language. We're going to send it far and wide to every part of this kingdom that everybody know we're setting in place this day and that day to where we're just going to have an onslaught on these people. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people, that they should be ready against that day.
Right. Setting people in it up and ready. Could you imagine that going out and you just sitting back, knowing that this day is coming? Or people sharpening up, grabbing all their tools and things and weapons of war, preparing for this day where it's legal to just get ready and come after you? That's what we're looking at.
It's like that movie, The Purge.
Yeah, it's like that. Or a good old hanging. Whatever's going, they just coming, and you just there with no recourse. So that's why I like to just bring these things up to modernize it. So we know this isn't just some old thing written up that ain't. I mean, these are things that we can relate to. Go ahead.
Verse 15. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
Yeah, perplexed. Like I was saying, they drinking, being merry, and you got people crying, wailing, holding and hugging their children for like, man, we got how many days? Let's go to verse 4. Chapter 4, verse 1.
When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate. For none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
Okay, so we went through a little bit, but now we're seeing, Queen Esther heard of Mordecai's behavior and sent a messenger to see why he was acting as he was, right? Mordecai explained the king's commandment by way of Haman, and he charged her to make supplication to the king on behalf of Israel. So Mordecai sends word to Esther. Remember, the king, Haman, nobody knows she of the tribe of Israel. But he sends word like, yo, this is what's going on. This dude is sending out a decree to straight take out everybody, right? And he wants her, he says, yo, I need you to go talk to the king. You can save us. You've been put in that place for this time so you can help Israel. And she's like, I can't. Like, it was a situation where you can't just, the queen couldn't just decide she wanted to just walk up to the king. Like, this is a real live king in high power. So it was in a situation where she couldn't just, she wasn't allowed to just walk up to him. She couldn't just show up and say, hey, I need to talk to you. Check out what's going on. You need to stop it. Her life was in jeopardy. She had to be, summons in advance and ask and be sent, and all these things had to be put in place where, okay, this time is acceptable, where you can approach the king on this day, all of that. So she's worried and scared for her life, especially just coming to him, but coming to him to try to tell him, bring him some charge of what she want and need him to do. So she's afraid for her life, right? However, so she was afraid of being put to death for entering the king's court without being summoned. She sent word back to him to tell the Jews of the city to fast for 3 days, and she would go before the king. She's like, hey, I'm going to do it. Let's all go join together in unity and fast to the Father for 3 days, and then I'm going to go walk in here and talk to this guy. Right? Meanwhile, this guy, let's get Esther 5. Meanwhile, this guy is working up all kind of evil. 5 and 14.
Esther chapter 5, verse 14. Then said Zeresh, Haman's wife, and all of his friends unto him.
They hanging out, being married, drinking, party, all his friends and wife, they having a good time, right? Go ahead.
Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
They enjoying and lavishing and having fun and talking about how they gonna kill him. It's already a decree set out on what they're gonna do to a whole nation. But they sitting up with his wife and his friends, and they say, "Hey, I got a great idea. Let's build a big 50-foot tall this and that, a great instrument of death to kill him. Wouldn't that be great? Tell the king, we'll put it together." So he orders resources, time, work, everything to be put together just to put together this elaborate way to kill this man, to put him as much to shame as possible. Not knowing that Israel is uniting in obedience and fasting to their father. Let's jump to chapter 7. Start at the third verse.
Esther chapter 7, verse 3. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are...
This is her approaching the king, right? Of course, she's 3 days to fast, and now she's coming to him. And go ahead.
For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king, Ahasuerus, answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? Mm-hmm. And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
Right. All right. So we see she's just kind on the behalf of Israel. Let it be known these are her people. She is of the tribe and the nation of Israel. Right. And he heard her. And when you read it, he's like, for this woman to come to me, and he couldn't do nothing but respect it because of the type of person he knew her to be. Being of such honor and of such humility, and the way she treated her handmaids. She's the queen, and she walked around in straight, in a great spirit. And so that's why he was able to receive when she brought something to him. Go ahead. Where you go to the 9th verse.
Verse 9. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon.
So the gallows that he had put together to hang Mordecai, he was ordered to be hung on. Boy. Brand new shocks, everything was brand new for him. He had a brand new gallows for him to break in himself. He got to go up the stairs or whatever it was and how it was put together and look at all that grand work put into it and go up there and deal with that thing himself. Did you read 10?
No. Verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
Get Psalm 7. So we're coming right back to Esther. (7:15). And then we'll grab Proverbs 11 as well. Psalm 7:15.
Psalm 7:15. He made a pit and digged it, and is falling into the ditch which he made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate.
Digging, looking for somebody else's demise, putting all this work and effort into trying to have somebody else stumble just for that ditch to be for yourself. And that's relevant across the board for us all the time. When we learn to deal with a level of love and care and compassion, you'll find yourself setting a plate and a table for someone, and you end up sitting down at it. Versus setting, putting together some cruel instrument of death and falling on that. And along with that comes, so much and I don't want to get sidetracked, but so much health, and all of that comes with wishing well for others versus looking and setting your life and your energies toward being cruel and evil to people. This is on a grand scale, right, what we read it. But it's not even on the smallest of scales. Just caring and loving, having the commandments in your heart. Not just because, I didn't actually put my hand on this guy and smack him. But actually really loving and knowing that, okay, he kind of crossed me. Instead of wishing something bad, hoping they're restored. All the way to the smallest of how you feel, hoping they okay. Even if it ain't to the point of figuring out a way to help them get better. Those are the things we don't know how much that's related to our own lives. Everything. How you feel, your health, how what befalls you, what you walk in and out of, and what you're doing, all of that. Having that love. Because here's this brother putting all this work and effort into a shiny new gallows for himself. Imagine if he was putting together something grand and nice for somebody else, and then it works the same way. It works the same way. Let's read Proverbs 11:5-6 as well.
Proverbs 11 verse 5. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness.
You see it? Read the first part again too. With the righteous, it's not just like I said, it's not just the wicked side.
The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright shall deliver him, but transgressors shall be taken in their own naughtiness.
You see that? It's not just one side. It's both ways. Walk in love. Those small things, again, those are the things where you just have no idea how they can affect your life. Just having love, caring, hoping, and wishing, and praying for others. That's why the scriptures say pray for your enemy. Don't look at them and go see how big of a new shiny gallows you can build for them to take them out. Let's go back to Esther. 8, chapter 8, we'll start, verse 1. And I'll move on here so we can get to the matter concerning Purim.
Esther chapter 8 verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman.
So here they go from being prepared to go off to the slaughter to not only being, saved from that, but given rulership. Boy, and you wonder why he sent a decree out to establish Purim as a holy day. The salvation of the Father through obedience. And it's stories and examples of obedience throughout this whole story. The sister Esther was just a wonderful, beautiful sister, dealing with obedience even concerning her uncle, saying, "Hey, this is what to do. Act this way." And it's more examples throughout when you read that whole story. Her continence concerning just being righteous concerning the scripture is what opened that door to allow her to even be heard, to be loved and accepted and brought in as the queen, for that matter. Uh, Go ahead. Go to 7.
Verse 7. Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews.
Go ahead.
Write ye also for the Jews as it liketh you in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring may no man reverse.
Man, you see what he's saying? Write ye also for the Jews as it liketh you. He's like, you got the ring. The decrees had already went out, right? So now he's replacing and correcting it. He's like, you that ring, and he's gonna seal it the same way. You guys have seen it before, and maybe King Arthur or something, Sir Lancelot movie or something like that, where they stamp that, seal something with wax and send it out to where that it's the seal of the king. That's why he's like, and no man can say nothing about it because it's my seal. You write it how you like it and send it.
Let me continue.
Yeah.
Verse 9. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. Mm-hmm. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause perish all the powers of the people and provinces that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Man. And you see it's nothing unrighteous here. It was to go out for those who came against you. Take them out. Stand together. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 12. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely, upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and all the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies.
Can you imagine going from sitting there waiting for the day to come where you're just going to be slaughtered, to a seal from the king coming out giving the command that the shoe is on the other foot all together, topsy-turvy, from the bottom to having a level of almost rulership, as we're going to read. This brought the people to fear Israel. Jump to 17, verse 17.
And in every province and in every city whithersoever the king's command and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people in the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
People followed the ways of the Jewish people. I'm saying Jewish because that's what this is referring to when you go and look at in the concordance. It's talking about those who followed the ways of the Jews, of the Israelites. They're saying they became Jews. Of course, we know it's a nation. You don't just decide you're going to be Chinese tomorrow. You can follow the ways And and that's what this is talking about. They fell so much under fear, they started following the God of the Jews. That's what it's saying, right? Let's go to chapter 9, verse 1.
Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people.
Mm-hmm.
And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers, and the king helped the Jews.
Dang. Woo. Can't even imagine that.
Because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them.
Mm-hmm.
For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For his son, for this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews.
Go to verse 13.
All right.
So you see, they're falling right in line in accordance, because their king, of the lieutenants and such, now they know Mordecai is second in command. So they fell right in line in fear of Mordecai. Verse 12.
Verse 12. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and 10 sons of Haman, what have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow as according unto this day's decree. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows.
Mm-hmm.
And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan. And they hanged Haman's 10 sons.
Verse 15.
For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000, but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Verse 18.
Mm-hmm. That's Purim.
But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled themselves on the 13th day thereof.
This is 20.
And on the 14th day thereof. And on the 15th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
Verse 20.
And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly,
mm-hmm.
as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor.
All right, so that's where we get, the custom of giving gifts, right, and feasting and giving portions, as the scriptures say. Go ahead.
Verse 23. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and destroy them.
And it's funny when I look at this, they're saying it because he cast Pur. It's almost, seems to be like a diss, if you will, to their gods or their methods. He's like, y'all cast Pur, and look what it got you. We're going to keep this day as Purim. That's real funny. You throwing rocks to try to get some gods that come against us. And here we are celebrating through what they thought was a way of actually, coming on some kind of power or some level to come against us. Because you cast lots and Pur to consume them and to destroy them. Verse 25.
But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year. Verse 28.
Mm-hmm. Keep them every year. Go ahead.
And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation.
That's right.
Every family,
mm-hmm.
every province,
mm-hmm.
and every city.
These days should be remembered and kept. Remembered and kept throughout every generation. Go ahead.
Every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed.
Right, from their seed for generations. The memory should not fail. All right, go ahead.
29. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed, the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it is written in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good hand. For the matters of the fasting and their cry out to the Most High. Yeah, so that's why we here. That's what, a day that the Most High has given us. Yep. Uh-huh. That's right. Go ahead and turn it all the way up. Turn it up. And we're going to put some numbers back on. I see some boxes of wine, some bottles of wine. We're going to have a little wine. We're gonna celebrate, because that's what they were doing. It's and it even goes into more detail concerning that when you read Esther and the good time and the feasting and the fun that they had. Could you imagine that? Woo, man! It just boy. We're so used to a state of just degradation and no hope. Even when we have those false ideas of hope. Like when you really open your eyes, even those who may not be under the level of understanding as some of us, and you just look and you feel like you got some hope, and then sometimes you just look up at certain situations and whatever it may be that you're going through, and it's just like, man, at the end of the day, it just feel like I don't have no recourse. What can I do? We can march until they run out of shoes, and nothing is getting worse. Who do I turn to when I'm about to lose my job because these people just want to mistreat me? And I got children to feed. These are just the simplest of things that we just deal with every day. So you can imagine them and the level of and the place and that stature they were at to be able to be set on a table to be just slaughtered. And so here, this is the Most High giving us this day to remember. A day while in the midst of living amongst our captors or amongst other nations, don't forget, he's in control of everything. Even when we went back to 2 Kings, where it was like the Most High sent them. He said, the Chaldeans and all these, he sent them like, yo, go get them. Send them out. Put them into captivity. You don't think the Most High got a hand on this situation? This is for us to remember. That's why it's like, put it as a memorial forever. Don't forget. Deal with the Most High, and He is your strength. That's for us to know. In this time that we in, it's a lot going on. The Father got us. And what He has in place to be, no man can undo. Forget about the king and his seal. There's a king above the power that guy had. The Most High is crushing that whole zone. That was righteous. I'm not speaking against that, but I'm just speaking to the authority of the King of Kings. Ahaya, Ashal, Ahaya, our God. Obedience to Him. That's what's going to hold us and keep us. So, that's Purim. That's what we're celebrating today. And before I we break loose, this, I don't know if many of you know about these books. It's really another good, and I should have been done told y'all about them. I know my brother owns like every single, this guy, shawakgabar.com. These books, he's got them for every holy day where you can, with illustrations, and it's really good for our children to be able to read and see these books. I just wanted to throw that out there before I forgot. But, that's essentially our lesson. And so I hope it was edifying and brought some understanding concerning Purim and what it is and what it means to us, right? So with that, we'll say shalom, and let's give another praise to the Father.